Our first question comes to us from beautiful northern Michigan. Joe, let's roll the tape.
Hi, Brian and Becky. Thanks for taking my question. I'm Jess Bretzman from Traverse City and just asking for a friend. There's a ton of confusion out there. Can you just give it to us straight? Tell us when a seller's disclosure form is required and when it's not. Thanks.
Thanks for the question, Jess, or should we say Jess's friend. So what you want to remember here is that the Michigan Seller Disclosure Act requires the seller disclosure form for residential real estate. So we're not talking commercial sales, we're not talking sales of vacant land, only residential sales. And one thing you also really want to remember here, because this is something that we hear quite often, is that never having lived in the home is not a reason for the seller to not fill out the form. So we hear this a lot from landlords or maybe investors who are, flipping properties. Never having lived in the home, not an exemption. Michigan does have a statutory list of exemptions that will excuse a seller from filling out the form, but never occupying or never living in the home, not one of those reasons.
Cue that declaration form there, Joe. Pop that right up so you can identify those exemptions that your seller would be deciding whether they fit squarely in, of course. This should never be a realtor-driven issue. The seller is the one that's responsible for filling out the form. They're also the party that's responsible for determining whether or not they are exempt from the Seller's Disclosure Act. And if I had $1 for every time we fielded a call about the non-occupant fiduciary or fitting in within that exemption, I'd be a very wealthy man. But alas, I do not get $1 every time that occurs. But one thing that we really want to point out is that if you are claiming that you are a non-occupant fiduciary, you'll want to make sure that you really drill into whether or not that applies or not. As you mentioned, landlords, there are other instances where people know a fair amount about that property, and realtors do not want to be the individual claiming that you don't need to disclose or you are discouraging someone from disclosing. Realtors on the listing side and on the buying side should always be encouraging their clients to do their due diligence. So as it relates to the non-fiduciary occupancy issue, you'll want to make sure that not only is the seller consulting a real estate attorney on whether or not they're confident in claiming that exemption, but also on the buyer side, making sure that that buyer doesn't view exemption or even a fully filled out seller's disclosure form as some kind of reason to not engage in their own due diligence, like getting an inspection on the property.